Hello and welcome back to an Old Man Watches. Today I'm going to be talking about Ralph Bakshi's 1983 animated fantasy adventure, Fire and Ice. From their frozen citadel Ice Peak, the evil queen Juliana and her son Necron plot the conquest of the world. Given Necron's mystical ability to send glaciers forth, crushing the defences of his enemies, and the hordes of subhuman warriors at their command, it seems the malevolent pair may well accomplish their goal. The last hope for freedom lies with the powerful volcano-dwelling King Jarl of Firekeep. But Jarl has a weakness, his love for his beautiful daughter Tigra. Juliana, who plans for her son to marry the princess and thus secure his dynasty, orders that Tigra be kidnapped and brought to Ice Peak. Tigra isn't as easy captive to keep hold of, however, and in the course of her journey northward, she finds aid from the handsome young warrior Lan and the mysterious masked figure known only as Darkwolf, who harbours a deep personal vendetta with Juliana and Necron. Of course, the fate of many more lives than just Tigra's hang in the balance. Will the ice conquer all, or will the flame of freedom survive? So, Fire and Ice is Ralph Bakshi's third attempt to craft an animated fantasy epic after 1977's Wizards, which I discussed a few weeks ago, and 1978's Lord of the Rings movie, which I haven't seen in more than 20 years and frankly don't really have any plans to seek out. Fire and Ice was a collaboration between Bakshi and famed fantasy artist Frank Frazetta. Frazetta did all the character designs for the film, as well as producing the film's poster art, which you can see on your screen. As with many of his films, Bakshi's biggest challenge would be financial. He had, in fact, only about half as much money for this film as he did for Wizards, made some 5 years early. To his credit, he did his best to offset this restriction by hiring good people. Screenwriters Jerry Conway and Roy Thomas were experienced writers for Marvel's Conan comic books, and his art team included James Gurney, who would go on to write and illustrate the Dinotopia series of books. So, some people who knew what they were doing. Unfortunately, the resulting film is a failure on almost every level, despite the people involved in the effort taken. Let's talk about why. And let's be clear, money was a big contributor to these problems. To cut costs on production, Bakshi went back to his old standby of rotoscoping. Live actors were filmed performing the actions of the characters, a cheap process. This involved no need for sets or dialogue and minimal costuming. Then the actual character animation was done by tracing over this footage. For the final film, the character animation cells were then overlaid on painted backgrounds. Now, cost-effective this might be, but it does not, unfortunately, look all that good. In theory, rotoscoping should allow for realistic animation because it's based on genuinely real motion. In practice, at least as implemented here, it frequently looks flat and false. The character art lacks a sense of depth, possibly because it was traced rather than drawn from scratch, and it also doesn't mesh well with the fully painted backgrounds. The backgrounds are by James Gurney and are visually the film's best feature. They largely suggest a primordial, primitive world that may be built on the ruins of a more advanced ancient civilization. Unfortunately, the fact that these backgrounds are a completely separate layer of art from the characters is too obvious in the way the film looks. And let's be clear, like animation, backgrounds and character art usually are two separate layers, but the idea is that they don't look that way, and here they look that way. There are numerous occasions where it feels like characters are floating across the background rather than actually being engaged with it. Visually, Frazetta's basic character designs are pretty good, though the simplified versions actually depicted on the screen definitely don't capture the dynamism of Frazetta's artwork. And unfortunately, however flat the art might be, the writing of the characters is even more flat. Juliana and Necron are evil despots because they're evil and they're despots, basically. They don't seem to have any particular purpose for their war of conquest, other than conquest for its own sake, and certainly there is no indication that they have any specific plans for the post-victory world. Their brutish subhuman minions, who problematically are depicted as much darker skinned than the good guys, don't appear well suited to act as administrators and governors, that's for sure. Everyone on the heroic side is just as underdeveloped. Lan is the brash young warrior who is out of his depth. Darkwolf is the gravelly voiced badass with a grudge. Not that the film ever explains why. It intimates an explanation, but the scene with the actual explicit confirmation of that was cut. And meanwhile, Tigra is pretty much just there as cheesecake. Even in the midst of snowbound Ice Peak, she wears only a tiny gauzy bikini and runs around barefoot. None of the characters feel like fully fleshed out individuals with ambitions and goals of their own. They exist purely to take required plot-related actions at required plot-related times. And it's likely that one of the big reasons the characters don't get fleshed out in any significant way is the script is just much too busy. There is a lot going on. Let's just take Tigra's personal journey in the film, for instance. She gets kidnapped and escapes no less than 4 times in 80 minutes. This drives a lot of the other activity. Lan and Darkwolf are both involved in multiple attempts to rescue her, while her brother also travels to Ice Peak to negotiate with Necron. King Tarrel's Dragonhawks, effectively pterodons that his men ride as flying mounts, also get a big feature appearance in a daring airborne raid that is largely ineffectual. And to be honest, largely ineffectual describes most of the activity in this film. People are always doing things, but their actions almost always have no impact on events. Tigra escapes, but is promptly recaptured. Lan tries to rescue her, but fails. The motives for kidnapping her to begin with prove to be based on faulty assumptions. This goes on and on. The movie is full of people making plans and taking actions that have absolutely no impact on future outcomes and are often undone immediately after they're kind of put in place. Presumably, all of this activity is intended to be exciting and engaging, but unfortunately it instead feels futile and repetitive. The characters don't come across as tenacious in the face of adversity. They come across as hamsters blindly running in a spinning wheel that will never go anywhere. Fire and Ice ultimately proves a poor combination. Next time, 1973 horror film The Legend of Hell House, from the pen of Richard Matheson, who's probably best known for I Am Legend. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.